Hello guys, welcome to the Inspiration and Enlightenment Slow Talk. In this part of the series, I compare enlightenment and psychology. Homo sapiens, the self-conscious species on planet Earth, is the culmination of 3.5 billion years of evolution. Now, after entering the enlightenment phase, we are told that the ego is an illusion and we need to get rid of it. Sounds like a huge waste of time, doesn't it? So today I want to talk about the big picture of the journey of the soul, where we came from, how the ego came about and what we are doing now, and where the ego is going. Basically the transformation, the basic transformation cycle it goes through. We're souls and we come from the higher self. The higher self is a single cosmic being, cosmic mankind, and we are part of that cosmic being, or rather emanations of that cosmic being. Picture the higher self as a sun with countless rays, four-dimensional rays that are alive and can move through time and space and take on bodies. How did it feel when we were still one with the higher self? Let me read an excerpt from Robert Monroe's book, Ultimate Journey. You can find it on page 25. I thought of home as strongly as I could, and released as the inspect told me. There was sensation of movement, sound like the wind flowing around me, before me, around me, and the scene came into view. Many hued cloud towers, just as I remember, only they are not clouds, flowing in shades of glowing color. Every color I ever thought of, and some I only remember but can't express. Let me just stop in the cloud and watch, feel, not seeing but feeling. And there's the music, 1,000 instruments, thousands of voices, melody weaving upon melody, perfect counterpoint, the harmonic patterns I know so well. Just stretch out and let the clouds enfold me, and the music is all around me, inside me. 1,000 years is but an instant. So relaxing and absorbing, just as I remembered it. How great it will be when I return to stay forever. Forever, yes. A little warmth intrudes upon my ecstasy. Is something wrong? No, it's not a signal to return to my body. But what? What's wrong with the clouds? Watch carefully. There, a large bright blue, followed by two smaller yellow ones. It's familiar. Others, and they are familiar too. What? That's exactly the same cloud frame. And the others, they're all the same. It keeps repeating over and over again, the same pattern in a repeating loop. The worm, my analytical worm, gets larger. The music, check the music. It can't be, but yes, it's repeating. The same as I felt an hour ago or an eternity ago, exactly the same. Let me try another spot, another perspective, move to another part of home. Here is good enough. This will make it different. But no, it's just the same as it was. It's not different at all. I'll move far away, but still, here's my home. There, that ought to do it. No, it's still the same. Nothing new, nothing different. The same pattern over and over, the same clouds, the same music. Let me go in deeper. There they are, a bunch of curls of energy playing games. That's more like it. I was such a curl once. Let me join the game. Round and round, up and down, in and out, round and round, up and down, in and out. The game is like an endless loop, round and round, up and down. no more. That's enough for me. That's enough. How about playing a new game? How about, oh, happy with what you've got? Don't want to change? Alright, keep doing what you're doing. Where do I go now? Where? That's all there is. There isn't any more. But I don't want to lie around in the same clouds forever, with the same music over and over. I don't want to play the same game over and over. How could I have dreamt of? There's nothing here for me now. Nothing at all. Now I remember. This happened to me before. This is why I left. And I can't come back. I don't want to come back. I had better leave. I know how. I know how to do it. There was a feeling of movement with the wind around me again, then silence, and fading easily into my physical body. I opened my eyes and looked through the tears. Nothing in the moonlit bedroom had changed, but I had. I was unable to go to sleep for several hours, too stimulated, too depressed. So, that's what the original paradise, or heaven, the rapturous collective blissful union with the higher self, feels like. Why did we leave heaven? Because nothing was happening. It was a perpetual, grandiose but repetitive symphony. And we didn't know anything. We were just aware. We left because we wanted to have adventures. And we got curious about planetary experiences. Likely we didn't know what leaving the higher self meant, and we felt a diffuse calling. But that's how all soul journeys start, with some kind of temptation to leave the bliss of union with the higher self and have experiences. The first thing that happened to us after leaving the higher self is that it gave us an energy body and placed us in the soul world. Think of it as a secondary paradise. This is the place we live in between incarnations. The soul world has many names: underworld, otherworld, astral world, etc., etc. It's pretty much like this world. It's the same look and feel, just everything is mental and energy, more like in a dream. In the Genesis, that's what's called Garden of Eden. Eden is not heaven, and we can't get to heaven, meaning returning to the higher self, by just dying. There are many Edens, because there are many soul tribes, and each soul tribe has its own garden. The Native Americans have the eternal prairie, the Vikings have or had Valhalla, the Greek had Elysium, and so on and so on. Edens are happy places. We don't need to eat or drink or breathe or sleep. There are no worries, no danger, no sickness. Our soulmates are there, except they are not on an incarnation journey. So think of Eden as your home base, the home base of your soul. Once in a while you leave the campfire and venture into the darkness of planetary life, incarnation, and have planetary adventures. That's where we experience things and gain wisdom and understanding as a soul. So we keep going around. Eden, incarnation, hundreds of times. We go through this cycle also every day. When our body dreams, our soul returns back to its Eden. Of course, we have no recollection of that, because the body is not prepared to memorize the soul's journeys. Before we can understand the purpose of planetary life, we need to understand the evolution of physical matter. And this is how it came about. Consciousness, first there was consciousness, and consciousness coagulated into energy, and energy coagulated into physical matter, chemical elements. On planet Earth, physical matter started organizing itself around 3.5 billion years ago, creating organisms, evolving organisms. The climax of that organic evolution is Homo sapiens. That's as far as nature can go. And this is the end of natural evolution and the beginning of individual evolution brought about through enlightenment. So there will be no superhuman race. So Homo sapiens is as far as nature can go, but nature put some rudimentary functions in place that, once activated in the DNA, allows us, or the soul, to evolve the body further. Now, let's go back to the original question. Why getting through the pain of acquiring an ego and then getting rid of it? Homo sapiens is the most self-conscious organism, but its self-identification is the bodily ego. So enlightenment evolves the soul's self-consciousness to the point it becomes again aware of itself, of the soul, and the higher self, while residing in a body. Anyway, I recommend to watch a TED Talk that talks about the universal thresholds of complexity. That shows this evolution from the Big Bang until the evolution of biology. I will put a link in the show notes. Organized matter, organisms, create their own kind of consciousness. This is a different kind of consciousness than that of our soul. It's a bodily consciousness. So we have to deal with two consciousness, the consciousness of the bodily ego and the consciousness of the soul. The two merge to enable planetary experiences. So when we wake up in the morning, the soul descends and identifies itself with the bodily ego and forgets itself for a day. It's like a forced temporary amnesia while being awake in the body, or dreaming in the body, if you so will. Again, the egoistic bodily consciousness merges with the innocent awareness of the soul, and that creates the firework of interacting external and internal experiences. This interaction between the soul and the body-mind-ego vehicle produces a benevolent cycle. The soul evolves through experiences, which upgrades the body, which increases the body's consciousness. An improved body allows the soul to have greater experiences, which evolves the soul, which evolves the body again. That's how we evolved from fishes to trees to snakes to lions to Homo sapiens, and finally with the creative ability of expressing soul values in the external world. Beauty, happiness, purpose, and love. The last phase of evolution, that's enlightenment, is accomplished through the individual evolution by the individual itself and not by the species, and it can happen within a lifetime. Let's have a look at the status quo of the science of consciousness, which is of course restricted to the bodily consciousness. Allow me to use the TED Talk of Antonio Damasio. It's called The Quest to Understand Consciousness, which conveys the status quo of scientific research of bodily consciousness. I'll put also a link into the show notes. According to Antonio, our brain produces two different kinds of consciousness. There's the mind, which is the continuous flow of mental images in the cerebral cortex, which includes the sensual stream as well as the internal dialogue. And second, a self or me, which is a subjective perspective that watches this mental stream and allows the mind to look at itself. And we are only fully conscious when this self is awake. So Antonio explains how the brain produces self-consciousness, and that is pretty interesting. So it's produced in the brain stem, which is in the midbrain, which is the ancient part of the brain. Yeah. So the brain stem has two distinct parts. Let me bring up a picture. So if the red part is damaged, for example by a stroke, you get into a coma and you lose yourself. Yeah? But you do not lose the sensual stream. The mind, the consciousness is still there, but there is nobody watching. Yeah. If the green part is damaged, you get something like a total paralysis. But self-consciousness survives. Apparently, that's a very horrible state to be in. Yeah? I happened to stumble upon the TED Talk of Martin Pistorius, who experienced exactly that. It gave me the chills, and I will also link to this in the show notes. Before we can go into the teamwork of the ego and soul, we need to quickly cover the emotional modes. Emotional modes are programmed reaction to certain experiences. Negative emotional modes are fear, anger, disgust, and loneliness. Positive emotional modes are excitement, sexuality, satisfaction, and friendship, etc. So emotional modes are involuntary and they serve primarily survival. Yeah. I call them modes to hint at the fact that they are complex interactions between brain functions, spinal cord functions, the senses, and bodily chemicals or drugs. For example, hormones. So organs develop these emotional modes over millions of years. Hence, they are pretty sophisticated, but very hard to overcome. And these emotional modes counteract the curiosity of the soul that wants to have experiences. Without the emotional modes, you would stare at a lion approaching you and you would be like, awesome, beautiful, and then you're dead. Yeah? Or you would poke at snakes, or you would drink your piss. Yeah? So there are four basic things that now happen during incarnation. So we have the beauty and the excitement of the sensual experience, and we can become objectively aware of these sensual experiences of the external world and gain knowledge of the external world. We are subjected to the emotional modes, which can be good or bad, and we are compressed, or the soul is compressed into self-consciousness. Originally, our soul did not know these things. Yeah? The experience of the dualism of life, pleasure and pain, sorrow and joy, failure and success, horror and beauty, harmony and discord, company and loneliness, is highly addictive. Yes, and it's important to understand that even negative emotions are addictive. Yeah, for example, we go bungee jumping to get scared, or parachuting, or we watch a horror movie. Yeah. So there you can see that we like to flirt with these negative emotional modes. So planetary experiences, they entertain, and evolve the soul. In particular, its self-consciousness and its objective awareness, mostly of the external world. Remember that before, originally, souls were just aware. Yes, they had no consciousness, because consciousness is awareness plus knowledge. Yeah, it's a consciousness that can discern between things. And it's consciousness that knows how to make use of what it is aware of. Awareness lacks that. It lacks the self-consciousness, it lacks the knowledge, and it lacks intelligence that can make use of what is being experienced. The soul became awareness or new things through union. It became the experience. Knowledge by union. Please remember that. We'll get back to that. Knowledge by union. So, being subjected to the identification with the bodily ego and being subjected to the emotional modes, pleasure and pain, and death, produces and compresses the soul's self-consciousness. And that creates a nucleus of self-consciousness within the soul that can respond just like the bodily ego responds to sensual expressions and emotional modes. This enables the soul to look at itself, and this is a prerequisite for enlightenment, the evolution of personal consciousness. So, consciousness enables the soul to truly experience. The soul can realize that something is happening to it. It realizes that it is watching something, that it hears something, it tastes something. And it does that without losing its identity, without becoming the experiences. Remember this too, without losing its identity. Of course, self-consciousness gives rise to the sense of separation and all the secondary illusions that come with it, and the delusions that come with it, and the problems. So Buddha is perfectly right. Until we overcome emotional modes and the sense of separation, bodily self-consciousness is always related to suffering. And that includes positive as well as negative emotional modes. But as puny and elusive and selfish the ego identity is, it is precious. But although it is precious, it still needs to be evolved to become useful for the higher self. The other thing besides self-consciousness that souls gain through incarnation is objective knowledge. Remember before that souls just had awareness. Subjective awareness is that. Awareness that could not be shared, neither to make use of. Planetary life functions like a platform. The senses limit our experiences to a very small spectrum. It is like a focus. And self-consciousness allows us to distinguish between things. This and that. Knowledge by distinction. So these are the two things the soul gains. Self-consciousness and objective knowledge. But mind that the soul has still its own subjective awareness. And that relates to all the things we become aware inside of us. And the knowledge by union, mentioned earlier. And enlightenment will bring that back into the game. So, short recap. We souls start out as innocent divine beings who live in a collective divine consciousness, paradise. And we start the journey of our soul, the cycle of incarnation, death, reincarnation. and planetary experiences evolve our self-consciousness and objective knowledge. Let me quickly touch on the mystery of pain. Like emotional modes, pain is made up by the brain. The soul experiences pain through identification with the ego, and it's good to understand how that works. Let me bring up an image. So somehow the soul and ego are partially merged or linked. Think of it as two four-dimensional vibrational matrices, whereby parts of the soul attune to the ego, but vibrate on a higher octave, so to say. When the ego feels pain or any other emotional mode, experience another emotional mode, the corresponding vibrations are replicated in the soul. And the soul also feels pain, fear, anger, and disgust. This is what could not happen when the soul was still in paradise. It is not possible in paradise to experience those emotional modes which create and compress self-consciousness. Now, what is the ratio of the overlap between the soul and the ego? Depends, I guess. I guess in animals it's something like 95 for the ego. In humans it's maybe like 20-80 ego soul. It sounds a bit low, but the proof of that is, or an indication of that is, that we are not really aware of our souls, are we? Yeah, we are mostly aware of our ego. But enlightenment pushes the ratio, of course, towards the soul consciousness. But although we are not aware of our soul, consciously aware of our soul, we still experience soul values. Soul values are love, happiness, purpose, and beauty. It's like a fog that descends from the soul into the ego, and that produces also the basic conflict between the ego and the soul, which I will talk about next. So, two things are going on. The soul self-consciousness is descending, gaining knowledge of the body and the external world. The ego consciousness is rising, becoming aware of soul values and the higher self. We feel both pulls, the pulls of the ego down and the pull of the soul upwards. The more incarnations we have on our back, the more we become aware of our soul existence while incarnate. That's what people mean when they refer to an old soul. So this is the basic conflict. We have the soul creatively expressing soul values through art, creating human laws, supporting other people, helping and supporting other people, and that is against the emotional reaction or responses like fear, disgust, and loneliness. So this conflict has two battlefields. One is in our minds and one is in society. In society, both manifest. The need of the soul to express itself through love and beauty, as well as the emotional modes like fear and hate. For example, the death penalty is the cultural manifestation of hate and revenge. Rehabilitation, on the other hand, is a soul effort. We can measure cultural progress by measuring soul values, overcoming emotional responses that have been manifested in culture. But back to psychology. The soul is our true self-consciousness. The ego is the self-consciousness of the body, which the soul inhabits. the soul is fluid, it moves up and down, yeah? And in babies it's very fluid, but as we grow older it settles and retires in the ego. So we grow two kinds of knowledges: the knowledge through distinction and the knowledge through union. And this is the mechanism of gaining objective knowledge. Stirred by our desires, the ego thinks up ways to satisfy desires. And then the ego tries something, and through the senses it receives the feedback from the external world, which is karma. And so we learn to see what works and what not. Now the karmic feedback loop evolves us, yeah, and adapts our desires. For example, when we reap sufficient negative karma from expressing emotions, we move to expressing soul values instead. Now, older souls synchronize objective knowledge, the knowledge by discernment, and the original knowledge by union. Yeah? With objective knowledge alone, we can't grasp the meaning of life or our awareness. Yeah? Objective knowledge, on the other hand, it keeps the soul's fantasy and creativity in check, the creative expression of soul values. So while the soul knowledge, the knowledge by union, can give us the meaning of experience, the knowledge by discernment gives us a perpetual reality check. And this dualism in culture it expresses as science and art, or science and technology. The opportunity that enlightenment gives us is imagination, yeah? Which is controlled creative awareness. Yeah? So imagination embraces both the knowledge by discernment and the knowledge by union. And that's why imagination is the new thing that's come into play when we pursue enlightenment, is the gateway to other realities and the higher self. And that's the main thing we will pursue when we do enlightenment, is to develop our creative imagination. The soul evolves. Yeah? The ego doesn't really evolve, yeah? And we get a new one every time we reincarnate. So the soul is our true self or self-consciousness. And during incarnation cycles, the soul acquires wisdom and understanding from experiences. And when it dies, it extracts the memory of its experiences. That's the comprehensive memory picture people experience when they die, or reported after near-death experiences. And then the soul takes that and distills that into wisdom and understanding. Wisdom and understanding are cosmic principles that apply to any kind of situation and experience. So during discarnation or in between lives, the soul digests what it learned and builds that wisdom and understanding into its structure. Just like what the body does when it goes to sleep. And that's why souls are sometimes called thread souls, because they collect, like beads on a string, the essence of experiences gained during incarnation, and transforms them into wisdom and understanding during periods of rest, and gives the soul new faculties or qualities. So when a soul reincarnates, the first thing it does, it gains control over the body. That's the baby and toddler phase. After that, the soul will, little by little, download the wisdom and understanding it acquired in previous incarnations. Yeah, and that's why old souls learn more quickly. Well, they don't really learn more quickly, but most of the things they just remember. Now, wisdom and understanding are general and generic principles. So the soul relies on knowledge and bodies of thought available in the culture it grows up in. And it needs those so it can marry the wisdom and understanding it downloads with that relative knowledge. For example, if parents are nihilistic or atheistic, the soul can't download any spiritual wisdom or understanding, or rather needs to wait until it comes along something that can serve as a vehicle, like a book, a mentor, or a community. So that's how culture accelerates individual evolution. It provides the soul with means to download its wisdom and understanding. Another important thing to understand is the species consciousness. So we are souls and we inhabit an animal body, but the animal body is not really individual. It still has a group soul. Even Homo sapiens still has a group soul, and we can easily return to the collective Homo sapiens consciousness. So if we get drunk, smoke a joint, or go to a football match, or go clubbing, these things, they dissolve our ego and allow us to feel being Homo sapiens again. I don't know how to call that. Last but not least, we are also continuously subject to the subtle telepathic impacts of the collective consciousness of Homo sapiens. We share thoughts and feelings with everybody. This collective consciousness is real, very real, and it's also dangerous. Carl Jung wrote a lot about that. So here we are, fully developed Homo sapiens, intelligent, educated, competitive. We have an excellent objective awareness developed by science. We express mostly good attitudes. We are beautiful, purposeful, happy and loving people. Something in the middle between emotional egos and loving souls, somewhere there. And now we face enlightenment. And enlightenment is the last phase of evolution that will rise our self-consciousness or the self's consciousness to a point it can gain conscious control about over the below, but also can become conscious again to what is above. So the objective is raising the consciousness of the body-mind-soul vehicle without losing the precious self-consciousness. So again, we can return to both the rapturous animal state through darks, but also to the blissful soul awareness. But there too, we would lose our self-consciousness. And I'm sure you have heard about the latter already. It's advertised as an enlightenment accomplishment. Reach pure awareness without the sense of separation, peace of mind, feel the one life, pure awareness, becoming one with the cosmic mind, suspending the senses, and the intellectual and objective mind functions, become a living soul, dissolve the senses of all boundaries and experience a universal connectedness, or experience the luminous matrix of cosmic consciousness. Nothing wrong with that. It's our original soul awareness. But that's not enlightenment. It's just re-remembering our original soul awareness. So what about people saying we need to get rid of our ego or the illusion of ego? Because on the other hand, we should maintain it. Otherwise we would just go back to our original soul awareness, which we evolved out from painstakingly over thousands of incarnations. So it's very clear that the ego shall not go, but turn into something else. What could that be? So the turning point is when we can control both. When we can control the objective awareness but also we remember our soul. So we can experience, and experience comes with the sense of separation and all the delusions that come with it. But we overcome these delusions by knowing, and that's a knowledge by union, by knowing the union of life. So we can perceive both the laws that govern the external world, but also the livingness and the purpose of the universe. So back to the question of this task. Why did we have to develop an ego and then get rid of it? So this is the cycle. The soul enters the incarnation cycle as a common Homo sapiens and with common self-consciousness. As the soul matures, it still works with a common Homo sapiens vehicle, but with an awakened self-consciousness, with an awakened soul self-consciousness that can express soul values and collect wisdom and understanding. Yeah. So esprit, which is the influx, the inspiration from the higher self, can now consciously enter the vehicle and complete the evolution of the vehicle that nature could not complete. Yeah. And slowly this severs the link to our emotional modes. Yeah. It is a bit of a danger, yeah, because without emotional modes we are not fit to survive. And that's the reason why at a certain point in our development or our enlightenment we have to seclude ourselves. And traditionally people they join monasteries, yeah, because monasteries, that's a safe environment where you really don't need to worry about survival, so you can sever the link to the emotional modes and raise your consciousness safely to higher levels. Mind that also pain is just an emotional mode. It's produced by the brain, and if we know how to, we can simply shut it off with the dangers that come with it. So as the soul proceeds with enlightenment, yeah, so it starts to unfold the Homo sapiens body, yeah, and that happens. Remember, that happens within an incarnation. So if we die before the evolution of the body is completed, we have to do it again in our next incarnation with our new body. So enlightenment does change the physical body and allows the physical body and the ego, the bodily ego, to become aware of other realities and have a glimpse of the higher self. At that stage now the soul and the ego somehow merge and turn into a transparent ego, yeah, a transparent channel, and the higher self descends and starts running personality consciously. So this is the change that takes place. We do not lose the ego. The ego, the bodily ego, merges with the self-consciousness of the body, merges with the self-consciousness of the soul, and become a transparent channel for the higher self. Now, don't worry that the higher self will overcome your soul and ego and run your personality, because at the end of the day, you are the higher self. More advanced enlightenment will then produce a body-mind vehicle that is strong and has a safe enclosure that enables it to explore higher realities, where it is higher than the higher self, without being absorbed back into it or without being destroyed by high cosmic vibrations. So We don't get rid of our ego, no. We develop an advanced self-consciousness, or you could also call it a cosmic self-consciousness, if you so will. So the ego can be compared to a scaffolding. Yeah. The illusion of being a separate self-conscious entity is essential to the building of our cosmic self-consciousness, as a scaffold is important to building a house. The problem is that we succumb to the illusion that we are the scaffold, we are the ego. But when the house is built, the self-conscious cosmic consciousness, we can remove that ego scaffold. And the purpose is the development of a vehicle that allows the soul to experience both the external world and other realities. And it enables the soul to participate consciously in what is called cosmic administration, because it can function both at the above, it's the soul, and below, which is the external world, and has the unique and very, very, very precious capacity to mediate between the above and the below. Thank you for watching this episode of the Inspiration and Enlightenment Slow Talk. Please help spreading the light with a like and share, and don't forget to subscribe. Love and light.